goal. John Polston is a player who frankly nobody's ever heard of, but he pops up here for Norwich. And once again, the consolation for John and the Norwich supporters is this was the only goal of the game. But for this, the players would have certainly got something like a draw bonus, if there is such a thing. We're going to see Tony Daly do an innocuous shot towards Tony Norman in the Sunderland goal. Look at the reaction of the man in the red jumper right behind it. For students of this sort of thing, on the replay you might want to ignore the man in the red jumper and look to the right a little. It's the bloke in the blue shirt. If the man in red couldn't believe it, the bloke in blue really can't believe it. This is Vinnie Jones scoring an own goal. Oh, no, he cleared it. I'm sorry, I must have got this wrong. Where's me note? Oh, no, nothing wrong with that one. I do apologise. Took me by surprise, that one. Vinnie, you old tease. Like to keep the audience on the edge of their seats, don't you? Just like Psycho, in fact. Yes, he cleared it the first time, but he's not going to make that mistake twice. The Wimbledon mystery continues. Here we have Mark Nicholas giving a crafty backward glancer to outfox his entire defence. No jumping up and down there. Very little celebration there. And yet we can hear people cheering. A good own goal, skidding off a greasy surface, Mark's forehead, and straight into the corner of the goal. But note the early forerunner of the Arsenal mural in action. Now we see Palace defender Richard Shaw caught in two minds, Abbott and Costello's. The headlong rush, like the light brigade of the goalkeeper, does nothing but give the bar a rather worrying waggle. Yet more quality England defending. This is Gary Pallister, or as he's known, £2 million Gary Pallister. Now, that's got to be worth seeing a couple of more times. From this angle, we can clearly see the way it comes off the tongue of his boot. Always call those ones looping in, but Gary said after the game, I saw it coming across and I thought I'd play safe and put it out for a goal. But you can probably see there's a couple of themes developing here. The kamikaze England defender, and also the valuable Millwall export, like Neil Ruddock. Smiling boy Neil believes in one-touch football, and all together now, that's all the touches he needed on that one. Of course, it was a snowy pitch, and there is the lesser-seen orange ball. Always wonder where they keep the orange ball for the rest of the year. They say there's no such thing as a sure thing, but as this ball enters the area, if you could freeze the action, well, it's obvious. And the one thing Neil Poynton doesn't need at this time is a lecture, especially from a goalkeeper with an equally preposterous moustache. Yep, goalkeeper calls, leave it. Neil ignores it. Earlier on, I said nobody's ever heard of John Polston. Well, in East Anglia, he's a legend. Well, perhaps not a legend, but his name never fails to get a big laugh. Has something to do with wearing boots that are the shape of Toblerones, I think. Now, here's a rare sight. Not only for Des Walker pantomiming this one up in the air, bound to go in, bound to go in. But how refreshing for a referee to allow a challenge on the goalkeeper there. Usually, as soon as you get anywhere near a goalkeeper, they go off like one of those car alarms in the middle of the night. Interestingly, as Walker balloons it, Shearer could have stopped his run there. The goalkeeper dives into the net with the ball. Without the shove, it would have gone him. I blame Stuart Pearce. A lot of people say this country needs a strong pound and a strong Liverpool. Certainly Gary Howers of Sunderland does. He can't bear to see them struggle. It was all done with the best of intentions. Some people say, can't you see that's the last act of a desperate man? even though it looks more like the third act of a Marx Brothers film. We'll end this section with a bit of pinball from the Dell, and a sight that's guaranteed to warm the hearts of all Northern English football supporters. Thousands of joyous, writhing cockneys. Yeah, don't include me, I hate Arsenal too. Strange thing about this goal, it was credited to Alan Smith on the night, and still is in the record books credited to Alan Smith. All right, so no Southampton defender wanted to own up to it. So let's put this one down to Keith Curl. Well, Keith's a close personal friend of mine, and I happen to know he's laughing along with that. I said earlier on that the pass-back rule means that you won't get those spectacular long-range own goals anymore. Of course, you can still pass back with your head, but ask yourself, when was the last time you saw someone score a spectacular long-range own goal header? Yep, here it comes. Everton's Mike Newell, a bullet, an absolute thunderbolt. Another theme we are warming up here is, look, you're a number 9. Will you please get down the other end of the pitch? Because centre-forwards in their own area, they start to hear the jungle drums. They see the net, the penalty spot, the old bloodlust. In it goes. The next lot of clips are the inevitable Paul Gascoigne character clips. But I do want to say, I do think Paul Gascoigne is the best footballer in the world. If you only buy one other video apart from this one, get that season before he did his leg in. There's nothing like it. Footballers these days do not make crowds gasp. And he used to make crowds gasp, whether you love him or hate him. And incidentally, I was doing a film with Paul Gascoigne once, his own video, and we went swimming, and he just turned up wearing these dark blue shorts with a 19 on them. Those dark blue shorts with a 19 on them, the famous ones. Top man, I said, oh, look at those shorts. Do you want them, he said. And there and then, it wasn't a pretty sight, took them off and gave them to me. So I've got them, and Sotheby's, you've got my number. I don't think the point here is as much pulling faces and being wacky as it's just somebody who seems to play football like, well, certainly I play football, caring about it, doing your nut. I'd love to be in a team. I'd love to support a team where just one of the players felt like this. For my side. Of course, yes, they don't spoil the whole thing. This next incident came after a whole week of insisting one England physio keep his head covered up. Can't think why. Then there was this, of course. Yes, professionals should be above that sort of thing, but we on the terraces aren't, so... Also, it's informative. I hadn't noticed how ugly Sid Cowans was until... But in the end, there's absolutely no excuse for such shameless showboating to camera as this. But lest we forget, Paul Gascoigne, best footballer in the world, and top man too. Well, most of the time. Aye, aye, cue wacky music. No, cut it, didn't mean that. They knew how to make badges back then, didn't they? Look at the size of that badge. It's like having a Christmas card on your tit. How about, if, as I'm wearing Nottingham Forest, if I did the next link in an amusing Brian Clough voice? What do we say, everyone, eh? That's what they want on football videos. That's what you all like, isn't it? All right. Mind you, to do this tape, I insisted on 2 clips specifically being involved. One was the bloke taking the penalty, and 2, the bloke in Ireland missing that open goal. So here come the next clips. 1, a bloke missing a penalty, and 2, a bloke in Ireland missing an open goal. A thing of beauty is a joy forever, and no matter how many times I see this, well, it's the kind of incident that makes me feel that nothing matters. How many of us believe he's actually injured there? But is this worse? There's always people on terraces who shout, "My mum could have scored that." Well, that time, yeah, they could. No, I'm not this one. I'll wear the West Ham, but I'm not, look, I'm not putting on a Crystal Palace shirt. I refuse to put on a horrible suburban Crystal Palace with their Thunderbirds designs. No, I'm not wearing a Crystal Palace. I'll do the link, but I'm not wearing Crystal Palace. Back to front. The last season, before they brought in the disgraceful no pass-back law, was the 91-92 season. So it was basically, any of you who've got to shake out any spectacular own goals, get them in. This is the last season to do it. And they responded to the call. Go on, take it away. Fittingly, typically, our last domestic round-up here is led by the leader himself, Stuart Pearce. Was a very tight angle, impossible some might have said, but not for Stu, the hard man. Doing it the hard way. Naturally, he blamed Norwich's John Polston. He would have blamed Keith Cole, but Keith was grabbing the glory himself over at Highbury. Must say, it is extraordinary how the same names are cropping up again and again and again. But when you see the sheer artistry of a curl creation, it sends a message out to the other defenders. Less is more. But fortunately for Wimbledon, there are some excellent youngsters on the way up. Gary Elkins has been playing alongside the master and knows exactly how to do it. Interesting variation on one of our themes here, a Millwall expert, Teddy Sheringham, the number 10, sniffing and poaching around. If it hadn't been for our man Elkins getting in the way, who knows what Ted might have done. So, if there's more than one Keith Cole, there's certainly more than one John Polston. That's Norwich's Mark Bowen there. We can see what's happened. As the cross comes in, Mark is absolutely 100% determined he is not going to give away a penalty. At all costs, he doesn't want to give away a penalty. So it's arms back, chest out, head in, And this one of the few instances of a defender looking round for the handball. Or, as they say up in Norwich, two Johnny Polstons, there's only two Johnny Polstons. Earliest own goal we can bring you is straight from the kickoff. Sean Teal providing the killer touch, but seconds into the game. Just the sort of start when you look round at your friend and you think, how much did it cost to get in here? What a wonderful season shaping up in prospect. Or in shorter terms, here we go again. A friend of mine went to acting and drama classes and they said, express shock, and he held his head. They said, no. In real life, nobody does that. So, nobody's ever going to confuse West Ham's Tim Breaker with actor Robbie Coltrane. You might confuse Jan Molby with Robbie Coltrane, but never Tim Breaker. Typically, the terraces behind packed with who supporters? So as we enter the last minute, Leeds 0, Oldham 0, and what a good job for Oldham. They've got the steady head and hand of Brian Kilcline at the tiller of their very solid ship. There he is now. Funny that, whenever I commentate on a Brian Kilcline game, he pulls a bloomer. Makes himself look like a piece of cheese. Only another 30 seconds to hold out. Goalkeeper could have got that one, surely. Here are 3 places not to sleep in. Baghdad, Beirut, Southampton 6-yard box.